Hello students, in this session we will learn writing the algorithms and drawing the flowcharts for the programs which requires if-else construct. Let us try to understand what if-else construct along with the problems. The first example is to find out whether a given number is positive or negative. The assumption here I have made is that if a number is greater than 0, then we will consider it to be a positive number, else we will consider it to be a negative number. Okay, so for this particular problem, we will write the algorithm and we will draw the flowchart. So first let us write the algorithm. As we know, the first step is what? Obviously the start. And once the step 1 is completed, then second step is to take the input, that is input n. So here n indicates that the number which we are taking from the user. So this we call it as a given number. This n we are going to find out whether it is a positive or negative. As I said in the earlier, if the number is greater than 0, then we will assume it to be a positive number. So we are just assuming that if the number is greater than 0, then it is a positive number. So step 3 will be what? If n greater than 0, then. Now you may see here the new words we are using, that is if here. So if the given number n, if it is greater than 0, then okay, what we need to do? We need to just output as positive number. Okay, if the given number n is greater than 0, then the output we are going to see here itself. Okay, in the previous examples you might have noticed that there will be a set of input. Okay, after input is done, there will be a process, and then after the processing, then there will be a output, right? So here if you notice, after input is done, in the third step we have the process. Process is there is no calculation is happening, but what we have another type of operations, we call it as a relational operations. We are trying to find out the relation between two entities. One is the n on the left hand side and other on the right hand side, that is 0. If n is greater than 0, okay, now you may notice here that the output of this n greater than 0 can have only two possibilities. The first possibility will be what? True value, and the second possibility is false value, right? So the result of this operation either will be true or false. In other words, it could be yes or no, right? Only two possibilities will be there. If it is true, then our assumption that is n greater than 0, if it is true, then definitely that number, that given number n will be a positive number. So the next operation will be output positive number. So else in the sense, if this n greater than 0 is not true, then what will be the n value? Then it will be definitely a negative number. So we have one more clause here called as else. So in the else, it will execute, or we will go into this particular path when n greater than 0 is false. Okay, as we studied, in n greater than 0, the result will have only two possibilities. One is true, other is false. If n greater than 0 is true, then output positive number. Else in the sense n greater than 0 is a false. In that case, the number will be a negative number. So output negative number. So the if clause, that is if else clause, how it works is basically the relational operation will be used to check the condition, right? If the condition, that is n greater than 0, if it is true, then we will do the first part, that is output positive number. Else, this else will be, or we will go into this particular route only when this n greater than 0 is false, either the positive number or the negative number. Only two possibilities, right? So to conclude this if else, we need to mention as a end if. So this end if indicates that the if else gets terminated at this particular stage. Okay, and the last step will be stop. Let us try to understand this algorithm more clearly with the flowchart. Then you will be able to understand it correctly. As we know, the first step is start. Within an oval, we need to draw an oval shape, and in that we need to write the start. Second is obviously for the input, that is input n within a parallelogram, input n we need to write. Then the third is what? The if clause is there. So we have studied during the flowchart definitions of the flowchart and the symbols used for the flowcharts. There was one particular shape called as a rhombus or a diamond, which is used for checking the condition, right? So this if n greater than 0 is pictorially represented within a rhombus sign. Now here within a rhombus we can call it as a rhombus or a diamond shape, right? Within that what we can write, if n greater than 0. So if n greater than 0, this can have two values. What are those two values? As we studied in the algorithm, n greater than 0, it may be true, right? Or it may be false. Only two possibilities will be there. Apart from this, we will not be having any other possibilities, right? If n can be greater than 0, or it could be other way. So if it is true, if n greater than 0 is true, then we need to do certain task, correct? And if n greater than 0 is false, then we need to do the other part. As we know here, if n is greater than 0, if this is true, definitely that is a positive number, right? And that positive number, what we have done, we have showed it as an output. So to represent that output within a picture, we have drawn an parallelogram, and within that we have written positive number. That means if n is 0, that is if it is a true, then it is a positive number. In the same way, if n greater than 0 is a false, right, then we need to travel in another direction, that is in the false direction. In the false direction, what we have, the number will be definitely a negative number. So that negative number we have to output it. So for the output, again a parallelogram. Within that parallelogram we can write negative number, right? So if you can see very clearly here that the step 3 is written, that is, since step 3 is a if and else clause, right? So the condition is n greater than 0. This n greater than 0, we are trying to compare two values, n value and the 0 value. Okay, let us assume that say n is 5, right? The 5, that is n is 5 greater than 0. So what we can have result, yes, 5 is greater than 0, that is true. In that case, we will travel in this direction, true, then positive number. We will just say that 5 is a positive number, Suppose if the n value is what, say minus 10. If it is a minus 10, then n greater than 0, that is minus 10 greater than 0. Obviously the result will be what? It is a false value. In that case, of course, we need to travel in the other direction, that is in the false direction. So in the false, we will mention it to be a negative number, right? So once either we can travel in the true path or the false path. Okay, and at step number 4, what we have? A stop. So whether we travel in the true path or a false path, we are going to conclude to the stop position. So those two, that is positive number path and the negative number path, will get concluded at the stop. So if you look at this flow chart, we are trying to travel from what? We initially begin from the start, okay, then input, then based upon this particular condition, if it is true, then we will travel in this way and reach the stop, that is terminal. Or if this condition is false, then we will travel in this direction and then we will come to the end, right? Either of the one path, either in the true or else in the false, we will be traveling here, right? I hope this algorithm and flowchart is understood, students. Let us see the other examples wherein we will be using the other similar kind of programs using if and else construct. The second example here is write an algorithm and draw a flowchart to check whether a person is eligible to vote or not. Okay, so in India we know that a person is eligible only when the person's age is greater than or equal to 18, right? If it is his or her age is greater than or equal to 18, then that person is eligible for voting, right? So based upon that, we are going to write an algorithm and the flow chart here. So the first step for this algorithm is start, and second the input. So input here, it will be the age of the person, right? Based upon the age only we can determine whether the eligibility, whether that person is eligible for voting or not, right? So the step 2 will be what? Input age, right? Now step 3 here, if you try to go in the same sequence as how we did it in the previous example, we need to check whether the age is greater than or equal to 18. That means what? We need to have an if condition here. So what we should write here? If age is greater than or equals to 18, right? You may notice here the symbol what we are using here, operation greater than or equal to, greater than or equal to. So now this condition, this operation can result in only two possibilities, either a true or a false. If it is true, then this then will be used, and after the then whatever statements we write or the steps we write, that will be followed. So assume that if the input age, say it is a 25, okay, if the age is 25, then definitely this if 25 greater than or equal to 18 will be true, it will result in a true. Then what has to be done? We need to output, output in the sense we need to show the result as eligible to vote, right? That particular person whose age we are trying to check, that particular person is eligible for voting, right? Suppose if the age is 15, right, 15, if the age is 15, then definitely this condition, that is age greater than or equal to 18, will result in an false value. In such case, the else will be taken care. After the condition is checked, it will skip the statement of this particular, that output eligible to vote will be skipped, and then definitely directly it will go to the else part. In the else part, what we need to mention? We just need to mention output not eligible to vote. Yes, because definitely when the age is less than 18, then that person is not eligible to vote. So based upon the age, we have found that the eligibility of that particular person, whether he is eligible or not. So once that is done, then the next step, before the writing the next step, we need to conclude if else construct by writing end if. This end if will tell that, okay, if is starting here, okay, if is starting here, if this is true, you do this particular part, okay, then you end if. You check the condition, if this condition is false, then you skip this, then go to the else part and execute this one, then do the end if, either this step or this step, right? And the last step will be for what? Stop. Now similarly, let us try to write the draw the flow chart for this particular algorithm. So first will be start, second, that is start within the oval shape, then the input is the age, so within a parallelogram write the age, that input age. Then third is the condition, right? It is the if condition. So if conditions are pictorially represented within an rhombus or a diamond shape. So draw a diamond shape, and in that write if age greater than or equals to 18. Now again here, age greater than or equal to 18 may result in a true value or a false value, right? It can have only two possibilities, a true value or a false value. If it is true, then what has to be done? We need to output eligible to vote. So that output is written within a parallelogram, and within that parallelogram write eligible to vote. Else in the sense, if this condition is false, then obviously we need to go into the other direction, that is in the false direction, wherein we are displaying the message, or we are outputting saying that not eligible to vote. Since it is an output, right, draw an parallelogram, and within that write not eligible to vote. So again, if you can notice here, based upon the condition, right, age greater than or equal to 18, it will be either true or false. Okay, whatever the path we choose, either a true path or a false path, we are going to conclude at the stop here. So the next symbol will be a oval shape within that stop, and both directions will merge within the stop here. Again, if you may notice here, we are either traveling in this direction, true direction. Okay, this true direction will be chosen only when the condition is true. Okay, or else we might be traveling in the other direction, that is false direction, whenever the condition is false. If the condition is false, we will be traveling in the false direction. Okay, let us see one more example, student. The third example is for the finding out the largest of two numbers. Okay, suppose when there are two numbers, if we need to find out which one is largest, basically what we will do, we will try to compare both the numbers. Okay, based upon that comparison, we can say which is largest here. Okay, so the assumption here is that both numbers will be different numbers. We will assume that both the numbers are two different numbers. Different in the sense they need not be a equal numbers. Okay, that is our basic assumption in this problem. Okay, the first step is start. Then the second step is input now. So in this case, in this particular problem, input will be two different numbers. Why? Because we are going to find out the largest among the two numbers. So definitely input should be what? Two numbers. So those two numbers I will represent as A and B. So it will be input A comma B. A will represent one number and B will represent another number. Okay. Now then step 3 will be what? Again we need to compare here. For comparing, what we need to do? We need to use again if else construct, right? If A greater than B, if A greater than B, then. So if this is true, then obviously A is largest, correct? If A is greater than B, then definitely A will be a larger number than B. So we need to do an output here. Output A is largest. Okay. Now, if this is false, means the comparison results in a false value, right? A is not greater than B. In that case, what has to be done? There should be an else block, that is else. Then in that case, definitely the other number, that is B, will be largest. So output B is largest, and end if. So for an example here, say if A is say 10 and B is 20. If A is 10 and B is 20, right? A greater than B, that means what? 10 greater than 20 is our condition. So now what will be the result? 10 greater than 20. Obviously the result is false. That false means this will be skipped and it will be executing the statements which are there in the else part. So under the else, what we have? B is largest. So what is B value? That is 20. Definitely 20 will be largest. Between 10 and 20, 20 is largest. So we have found the solution here, right? So if in other case, consider say 110. A is 110 and B is 20. So 110, that is 110 greater than 20. Yes, this is true. 110 is greater than 20. In that case, what will happen? That is if block will be executed. That is output A is largest. That is 110 is largest will be executed, and the other part will be skipped. Okay, and in the last step, stop. If you notice clearly here, in the if else block, either the if is executing, that is the statements which are under the if are getting executed, or the statements which are under the else are getting executed. It will never execute both the statements. Okay, it will never execute both the statements. Based upon the condition, if the condition is true, we usually call it as a if block or a else block, or true block or the false block. Either the if block will be true or it will be false. Based upon that, the control will be executed. The flow of the execution will be carried away. Okay, let us try to write the flowchart for the same thing. So first step is start, that is within an oval start. Then input is there, that input two numbers are there. So within a parallelogram, input a comma b. Okay, then the next is the if else. In order to incorporate the if else, we need to draw an rhombus sign, that is a diamond. Within that, write the condition if a greater than b. Again, here this could be resulting in true or it could be resulting in a false value. Right, based upon the values of a and b, either it will result in a true or a false value. If it is true, then definitely output a is largest has to be taken care, has to be executed in order to represent that within a parallelogram, because it is an output statement. A is largest, we will mention. Else in the case, in the sense, if a greater than b is a false, a greater than b is a false. In such case, so under the else, b is largest we need to mention. So since it is an output, again though we need to draw an parallelogram, and within that parallelogram write b is largest. Okay, and the last step, that is stop. Both the paths will get concluded at the stop. Again here, if you notice, the decision will be made at this particular position. Right, decision will be made over here, either to travel in this direction or in this direction. We will be choosing one among these two directions. We cannot travel in both the direction at any time, right? We can choose only one direction. That direction will be found based upon the result of this condition. Okay, so if this condition is a true, right, then we will go into the true block. Okay, this we call it as a true block, and if it is false, then we go into the false block. At any condition, at any given point of a time, we can travel in a one direction. We cannot travel in both the directions for a given set of values of a and b. Okay, I hope these problems are understood, students. If there are any doubts, please get in touch with me, or you can put the comments in the YouTube channel. I will get back to you with the answers. Thank you, students.